morning, it's Saturday morning, it's Saturday morning, it's Saturday morning. And this is The Art of Rock. Welcome one and all, and I apologize that anything's glitchy because my computer just really hates me, hates you, and hates everyone. But they're here to take us down because that's the dark truth of the matter. Addambombb, welcome. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the Tongva people who are the traditional landowners of Los Angeles, and I want to thank you for surviving. Secondly, this is Art of Rock. Every Saturday we are here, and we're talking about music and the process of music and musical things, and we're inspiring each other, encouraging each other, and yes, my mics are on and you can hear me. This is made possible with ANGELSPIT'S Patreon. Here is the URL, and I am ever grateful for you helping me out there. It could cost you $3 a month. That's as much as you tip a bar person serving you alcohol on a night. And it could go to me, and I will make crazy music for you. And we keep everything going. ANGELSPIT'S new album is on BANDCAMP. Patreon members got a free copy of that, by the way. And they also got to watch the work in process as it all came together, as you will be seeing the next album soon. Anyway, that's the previous album, that's the current album that's out now. It's The Bastard Gods. It only came out a month ago. I'm very happy about it. It's very brutal and terrifying. Brutal and terrifying is good. I like brutal and terrifying because it's where we exist, right? There is a playlist called the Industrial Incisions playlist. It's full of really cool music that you need to know about. It's there on Spotify. I want you to like that. There's a whole bunch of old classic industrial tracks as well, and tracks from artists here. So it's a great way of connecting with old stuff and new stuff. Excuse me. On the subject of new stuff, this is MTV TV, and after this we're going to be raiding on over to MTV TV. It's non-stop amazing music from the dark side of the spider web or something. Gee, I don't know, but it's great. There it is on Twitch. Follow that Twitch. It's amazing. Man, I just drank my coffee too fast and now I'm paying for it. If you've got a video, send it to MTV TV because they will play it because they are amazing. And they also have a Patreon. Go support their Patreon too because it ain't cheap running a 24-hour-a-day non-stop streaming thing, and it's amazing. And if you're looking for a new audience, if you're in a band, send your stuff to MTV TV. People will find out about you. If you're looking for new music, watch MTV TV when you got nothing else to do, or you just feel like having something in the background, because I promise you, you are going to find a new artist that you really, really, really like. So jump on it and get it. This is Art of Rock. We're here. Alex, you've got a burning question about guitars. Go. If anybody's had experience with this, I'd love to hear about it. Brent.
Is they actually make some like game controllers, and they're nothing but a MIDI instrument. That I don't really rely on them for their onboard sounds, but you've got a straight up fretboard, and you can chain that to any synthesizer, and then you don't have the tracking issue. I believe I was using a Roland as well. It was one of the early ones.
Cool. Alex, go. Thank you for raising your hand. Alex, talk to me.
Yeah, and now there's a special one, but it's super expensive where it goes via the it's for bass and it goes via the like the frets are out of metal, and it makes a contact with the string and the fret make a contact, and then the synthesizer calculates where this contact is made, and that's how they track it. But I think these are super expensive. Yeah, and I have one for bass, and in my experience, again, I don't know how good the ones of today are, but sometimes it's better to just put a filter on it or a ring modulator. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Aaron, hit me.
I was going to say, in the vein of guitars, I didn't know till I was rewatching some footage. Edsel Dope was talking about, instead of lugging amps around, they actually have like amp simulators or bass simulators. So I was wondering if anybody's ever had any experience with that, or if that's just a whole bag of cats. And, you know, like, I guess the question would steer into, when you're playing live, what tends to be a better rig? Is it like the traditional amp that you lug in and hand truck, or the amp simulators?
Alex, I'm going to go after you. I see your hand.
I know that most of the mid-sized and small metal bands that tour use amp simulations because they're just much less to carry than a cube amp, and I think they sound almost as good. I think 10 years ago the Avid 11 rack was really popular, and nowadays it's probably the Camper. And I think Line 6 also makes a good one. But yeah, I think like in the lower tier of metal bands, they are almost everything.
Rockin'. Thank you. ANGELSPIT used to go out. George would take a Line 6, and it sounded ballin'. And yeah, it's when you play, you don't want to be lugging that shit around. And you know, it's funny. I haven't been to a live show in quite a while. To see a band playing to under 50, 80 people who have a guitar rig. Everybody seems to be using emulators. They're lighter, you know, and plus there's so many more sounds you can get out of them because they often have effects units built into them. And you just pull out either a mono or stereo DI out of them. And a lot of them have DIs built into them. So that's my experience. Vince, tell me about your experience.
Okay, I don't have any experience using an amp sim in a live situation, but I know that what a little experience I do have using a software amp sim, it's good for a studio environment. You'll get the sound you're looking for, but I don't think you can necessarily rely on that in a live situation unless you have your own speaker array that you're running, because you can't get the same sound out of somebody else's sound system. So like if you're hooking it up to their PA system, or if that's how you're running it, then you don't want to, like, because if you're not carrying a whole amp, you know, your speaker cabinets are a lot of that amp. Your amp head is this big, so you know your other equipment is what you're running anyway. That's going to be a lot to carry. So like if you're running an amp sim in your own speaker array, you're not carrying much more than you are if you're carrying a tube amp in a speaker array. The only difference there is, you know, a briefcase of guitar pedals. You know, if you're running it for the onboard effects. So I think it really comes down to a matter of personal taste and how much budget you have in terms of your equipment situation. Like if you can deal with running through a sound system at the event, cool, you know, run an amp sim if you don't want to carry the extra gear. But if you're not running through their sound system anyway, just have the whole setup if you can afford a tube amp and speaker cabinets, because you're going to get better sound that way anyway.
Excellent. Brent, if you can't, if you just put your hand up and I'll remember where you are in the queue, but I see your hand. Talk to me, baby.
I was gonna agree with you on the Line 6 part. I use and also Vincent there. You know, I find that they're very useful in the studio, going between virtual amps and whatnot. Both FL Studio does it, Line 6 does it as well. No, I've not put them through a live unit. However, again, the point that he made there, where if you're relying on someone else's speakers, then your results may vary. That makes sense.
Perfect. Hold on, I'm just going to do something very quickly. Because my computer is dying. Hi, welcome back. Okay. All right. Cool. Does anybody else have anything they want to throw in about this? And the use of guitars and shit like that, Alex.
I think the Avid 11 rack now is quite cheap use because many people have been upgrading during the pandemic. Yeah, they used to be kind of standard in the lower budget bands, and they sound pretty good. So maybe if you have like $200, you can find someone on Craigslist, on Craigslist or something similar. Ah, God.
Awesome. That's great. Brett, hey man, you found the hand. Talk to me.
I did have a follow-up question, since we're on kind of the topic of guitars. I've been messing around with limiters and compressors lately, trying to get my guitar sound cleaner. As we know, synthesizers take up a huge amount of audio spectrum, and guitars are no different. So in the past, I've done a lot of EQing and a lot of manual cutting, but it seems like there should be a better way to do this. So I'm just curious what the over-under is for everyone else.
Alex, I'm going to go in after you. Alex, go. Talk to me.
So I'm no guitar tech, but I would put a gate in front of it because guitars usually have quite a bit of noise, especially if you use high gain guitars. And so that's probably the first thing that I would do. I don't know if noise is your problem. Compression usually makes it worse because it will bump up the signal and the noise with it. I mean, it can also sound cool, but if you want low noise, compression might be the wrong way to get there. But it makes, of course, the sound more impactful.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Are you playing... Hi, Ivan. Are you... Tell me about your... Brent, so this is a mixing issue, and are we talking about mixing it on top of other synths? And are they big synths?
It depends. So usually if I'm approaching guitar, it's typically guitar and drums to start with, and then synthesizers or whatever are there for effect or pads or something that gives a little bit more ambiance. But what I'm actually running is basically a Schecter Hellraiser series through a Line 6 distortion, and what I've been messing with is actually using hardcore in FL Studio to provide some of the compression, the limiting, and whatnot lately. I'm not really satisfied with that sound, and so I was thinking, that I know there's a lot of like metal bands out there that have this mastered, where they're going 1,000 miles an hour, and every note is precision live, and that's kind of what I'm seeking. It's like if I can get to that level, then I think I can nail down the rest of the sound.
Okay, here's some thoughts from me, and this is all cheating. One, when you have guitars are a big instrument, like you said, and they use lots of frequencies. Synthesizers, blaring are big instruments that uses lots of frequencies, and the two can't coexist. So the first thing is you've got to be looking at your the arrangement and making sure that it's a conversation. And this is with big guitars, like those big guitars and big synths. So big synths talk, then big guitars talk. When you listen to some of industrial guitars, you'll notice that they're actually kind of thin. Unless it's just the guitars. Example, Rammstein, they're big fucking guitars. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do. The first thing is a trick called reamping. And reamping is when you record the guitar with just straight in. Strings going flip, flip, flip. No, nothing on it. Nothing. Just the guitar. And if there's noise or anything, you might want to do some noise filtering, whatever. You might want to do an itty bitty bit of compressing to the raw tone of the guitar. You also might want to do an itty bitty bit of pitch, timing correction. Alex mentioned gating and stuff. Sure, do it. Yeah. So that guitar track is borderline perfect. Then you reamp it. So you take that output, run it through a DI or whatever, and then you run that through guitar processors to make something huge. So what's going on with that tone is you are affecting a near perfect guitar sound. And if you want to add more variant, a more definite staccato-ish 16ths, you do it on that raw signal. So you literally go in there and cut stuff out, or you gate stuff out. Guitarists like to go chunk, 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 chunk a lot. My advice is don't do that, because you don't need extraneous communication, because there's a whole bunch of things that are talking, and we don't need more talking, or you're going to end up with a fucking mess. Next, you then have another guitar part that is more punk rock. Where you're trying to hit the mark, but that one is thrown through the amps and everything else. So you've got two guitars, one playing the same thing. One is precision tight, and the other is more human. And one might be going through an Orange emulator amp, and one might be going through a Marshall or something like that, just to supply this big tone. But when I do guitars, I meticulously cut things. Meticulously. But be aware of there's a bite frequency with the guitar, which is around about 2K. Depending on a whole bunch of things. If you go any higher and get noise in there, you kind of get this going on. But that chunk of the string is usually kind of 2 to 4K, depending on a whole bunch of things. There's mud about 400, and there's beef about 200. 400 cycles you might want to pull out because it gets a bit muddy and throaty. And at 200, it's got that grunt. But the thing about that grunt is it might be fighting with the bass, because that's where the bass's strength frequency is as well. And it's not a cardinal sin to put a high pass on guitars, because they're generating a lot of tone that doesn't need to be there. If not a high tone, high pass, then a high shelf, a low shelf. But guitars and synths to me are such a mystery, because some people are good at guitars, some people are good at synths, but they fight. They really fight. Alex, what you got?
Guitars for me are a passion, although I don't play them, because I used to play them and I was so mad that I wasn't getting the tone that I wanted, that I'm still learning stuff about guitar even though I don't really play it. One thing, if your guitar sound is too weak, you have to remember that on records usually your guitar is tracked multiple times. One time hard pan left, the other time hard pan right, and the third time directly in the middle, and that also gives you some girth. And my question to Brett is what exactly he doesn't like about his guitar tone.
It's more the interaction. One thing, of course, you've got the human element of it. When you're playing against very quantized drum beats, synthesizers, things that are precision timing, every single little mistake is quite noticeable. So the only way I've come up with to fix that is manual editing of the actual waveform. Beyond that, the other problem is, it's just like Carl was mentioning there. So, the sound coming from I am line, by the way, through this. The line sound coming through just has so much power. And so let's say you've got a very staccato kind of bass line, whatever, going along with drums, something just to kind of keep the machinery flowing. What I find is that I fight with, I spend a lot of time fighting in EQs to be able to dial in what can be heard. And of course, you know, sending it right and left or center, that all helps flesh out these sounds. But there's, I guess what I'm looking, you know, part of what spawned the question for me was like, okay, I remember going and seeing Black Dahlia Murder. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with that band, but I was on a balcony. I'm looking down. He's got his pedal board, and one of the things I noticed before they really started going is when he touched the string, he got a tone, and then it just stops. And he seemed to be able to control that very well. How long he wanted to sustain, how long he wanted, you know, whatever he really wanted out of that tone. And so I was thinking about that lately with a song that I've been working on, and I've gotten where I can play it pretty dang precise, but the only other thing that I can do beyond that is to have something aiding the guitar almost. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on it.
That's really interesting. Alex, I'm throwing it back to you.
I hope I don't explain something to you that you already know, but metal guitarists usually palm mute, like they put their palm back on the string in order to cut off this the sustain very quickly. And I think maybe that in combination with a gate can give this choppy sound, and maybe a compression, like you said in the beginning. Yeah.
I think so. I've seen pretty good results with compression and gating. And maybe there's actually hardware or something out there like a certain gate or a certain compression that excels at this. And I'll pick on Carl here, you know, and his love of Behringer. You know, there's certain equipment that excels at certain tasks, and Behringer is not one of them.
Yeah.
I know that some compressors are slower than others, but I think usually it's more about the values than the compressor itself.
Okay.
Very important is the attack parameter, because that can have a huge impact on the sound.
The what parameter?
Attack,
bro.
And you have to remember, on a compressor, it's the opposite of opposite of a synthesizer, because on a synthesizer, much attack is slowly starting sound, and on a compressor, it's, I think, like more bitey. I don't know. It's in my I remember it the way that it's the opposite on a compressor than a synthesizer. That if you turn on the attack on a compressor, it's usually more percussive, and if you turn it down, more I don't know, but in synthesizer, if you turn on the attack, it slowly fades in, and that's counterintuitive for me.
Okay.
Yeah. This is I got nothing here. Man, I wish George was on this. George knows ANGELSPIT'S guitarist. He's really good at this stuff, both digital and analog. But one thing I've learned is that you need a clear space for the guitar to speak. And for example, you might have this second guitar that is the balls guitar, and the balls guitar only comes in when the synths are not talking. So, for example, if the riff hits on the one, and the bass and the synth also hits on the one, but the riff's playing something, like not, but like a big chunky gank, 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 like kind of helmet sounding thing. Oh no, helmet would be jank, 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 like that. wherever that synth hits, balls ain't there, but the balls comes in on the other ones. Just almost as if you're side chaining the guitar, but you're manually cutting something out. Yeah, that's what I've learned, is that when you compromise the sound of a big guitar, and that's the problem in industrial music, I think, is that big guitars are compromised and big synths are compromised because they do not coexist, because it is the same great big frequency spread, and all you get is this mushy noise in the mix, and it's not good mushy noise. Like, if you've got a beautiful synth tone, we all spend all this money and everything trying to make these amazing synthesizers, and then we fuck it in the mix. And it's the same thing with guitars. And also don't, there are, if you have a guitar emulator, think about transistor amps. Like the shitty transistor practice amps, like the little PV Bandit and the Marshall practice amps that are literally this big and they sound awful. Running something through one of them and sitting it as this high-end definition, it can work. And when I've tried it, it always works because it adds this really nice top-end thing that's not always in there. It like just might be coming in at certain periods. Aaron.
Hey, so kind of to echo what you're talking about, or I think a lot of it just kind of bleed into composition and how well the instruments complement each other. Because the whole time you were riffing about the way the guitar hits, it reminded me of Alice in Chains' "Man in the Box," because it like that song feels very, very balanced in that it's like wow, wow, wow. It's got that every other hit. But then eventually the guitar takes off and does a bunch of crazy shit, but then it comes back down. So I think, quite a bit of it is like you were talking about, like making sure that shit doesn't get out-competed, or you know how to pace it instead of, having one thing overpower it and then your synths are low and it sounds really shitty.
Yeah, and it sort of sucks that it's that track's really interesting, as is Rage Against the Machine and all that stuff, because it's just guitar, just bass. And it's all very AC/DC, where, hey, we've got the sonic opportunity now to really focus on that massive guitar sound. But with industrial, like you listen to Thrill Kill or fucking Frontline Assembly, Hardwired, like really listen to the guitars in Hardwired, they're thin. And, you listen to early Ministry stuff, like the classic Ministry stuff, and the guitars are thin. But if you then listen to like Psalm 69 or something, it's predominantly guitars and samples. So there is sonic opportunity for the guitars to shine, and that's the trick. And you've got to think of it like it's a conversation between two very tough people who have got big things to say with big voices. And if they talk at the same time, it ain't gonna work, in my experience, at least anyway. Aaron, go.
One last thing I would say, if you're looking to just kind of break outside, or if you want like a reminder of just the wild shit that you could try out with like guitars. I mean, there's two guitars that stand out, and it's the early days of Marilyn Manson. The guitar work on those albums is fucking incredible. And from the weirdest of places, everybody gives me shit for it, but Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit, he played that guitar just fucking, it's otherworldly. It's a whole different pocket of how you play and what you can do with that machine.
Oh, good on. Good to look. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the early Manson as well. But Limp Bizkit's not been one too much on the radar. I'll give that a go.
And that's actually really interesting is listen, and also thanks Alex Rob Zombie, like specifically listen to like Antichrist, Mechanical Animals, and early Manson is really good to listen to, because it's more of a fight. It's good to listen to what the guitars and the synths are doing. If anybody else wants to throw in this, then do throw it in, or we could talk about something Alex brought up, which is chords, which is one of my favorite subjects. Okay. Alex, do you want to pose the question, and then I'd like to be the first person to shoot their mouth off.
Yeah, that's something that recently come to mind. I was with my band playing in a park because the weather was so great, and we just sat there and made music this way. And because of that, I brought my battery-powered synthesizer, which is like an FM synthesizer with speakers and so. And I brought it partially for other people to play, because then we have like a better, because not everyone can bring drums, for example. And then one of my bandmates who usually plays drums, she asked me, "Hey, why don't you play?" And then I said like, "Well, I don't really know how to play chords directly." And so why not? You have your synthesizer, because she doesn't know that I usually use it for bass lines or pre-programmed stuff, but I sort of grew up playing like Baroque music and only monophonic instruments, apart from for a short time guitar, but that didn't last more than 3 months. So I never really got the idea behind chords. And if you have any ideas how to maybe get a feel for playing chords, supporting music, maybe other people with playing chords, then I'd love to hear what you've got to say.
Let me shoot my mouth off about chords. Step 1, take your synthesizer, if you can take it out, sit somewhere, a park, your bed, somewhere away from your laptop, and play with chords. Familiarize yourself with the basics. I don't know, no, I think we can't even see this damn thing because Zoom's making everything muted, but here's my extremely expensive Yamaha piece of crap, PSS 170. I gotta tell you, this thing is fantastic for it's awesome for writing tracks, like literally, because you don't fang-dangle around with anything else, you're just focusing on the music. It's great. So get used to the idea between major and minor. Step 1. Step 2 is know what chords are in what scales, because usually when people play, they're going to be in a scale. Here's C. Oh. Beautiful. And so know that in C, it's C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. That's the fun one, but we'll get into that in a few years. So when people are jamming out, let's say you're in C, but someone's holding down that pulse on D, because D is the saddest key of all. The cool thing is that, okay, you can start with a D chord, that's D minor, and then you can do other things while they're. So I'm still pedaling that D. Holding the note down, pedaling is holding down that note. Then I'm going to do something crazy, and I'm going to go into an F now. Then I'm going to go to a G. Back to the F. Now I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to go to a B flat. Then to G. Oh yeah! So step 1 is, if you're jamming with other people, figure out what key they're in. Listen to whoever's playing bass, because they know. Step 2 is play whatever feels good, but you've got to have the fundamental knowledge of chords is really important. And that is 1, 2, 4, 5. So, in D, it would be D minor, or D major, or D whatever, depending on what scale they're in. F, G, C. And just by playing those things around there, things are going to sound really cool. I saw a band. I actually worked a gig last night doing audio for a band from Russia, who are now, I believe they're refugees in the United States, and hashtag politics. And they were this dream jazz band, and I bring this up because I was listening to the chords they were playing. Every member in that band was so good. Bass player, 2 keyboard players, guitarist, drummer. And the songs had a basic structure, but then off they'd go. And the vocalist, oh my God, that woman could sing. And I was listening to the chords they were playing. And what they were playing were these big clouds of chords. So like in D, that they were all swirling around. Chords hold the emotional, arguably, key to music. And the trick is that this is now a language. And it takes a long time to learn a language and then become proficient enough to communicate in that language. Which is why get that keyboard and put it somewhere, like on your bed or something, and just sit there at night, and instead of strumming a guitar, plink on your keyboard. And know that with one hand holding down a D or an E or whatever, know that when these certain notes get played, these chords sound good over it. And you know, when you start out, it's going to be pretty rudimentary, that if I'm playing a D, I'll play a D there. Then when I go to the F, I'll play an F or whatever. But as you move around and start playing, you're going to understand that you'll start learning the language of chords. You know, if you're doing this, it sounds cool as well. So that's holding down a D, and I'm going between an F major and a G. And what's cool about that is it feels like it wants to go somewhere. Oh God, I suck. I'll try that again. F, G, D. G, D. And sure, there's a whole bunch of tutorials and stuff like that, but get to know the basics. That's my thing. Definitely look to basic tutorials on it. Rezi, welcome. Yeah, get to know the basics and play. Play. Because absorbing all this thing is another thing, but there's a neurological connection you have to make between your fingers and your ears and your emotion. Because chords are guiding your emotion. That's what you want. Then you get into angry stuff, but let's get to angry and spooky stuff in a few weeks. Step 1 is understand the basics. That's my take on it. Anyway, everybody is going to bring with them a different perspective. But Ernie, please jump in. And if we could keep it kind of rudimentary, basic chords, that would be awesome, because this is basic. Okay, now I'm using 3 fingers instead of 1. Floor is open. Oh, really? No one wants to talk about this? Rezi, you don't want to talk about this? Your chords are fantastic, Rezi. You don't want to throw in? Alex beat you to it. Alex, go.
Well, my original idea before you said anything was to just look up the chords to my favorite pop songs or something and then just practice them, but maybe your idea is better because it's much more engaging.
Yeah, play, muck around. That's the it's so important to music. Like, I think, look, theory is important. It's very, 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 very important. And there's so many places where you can learn theory now, YouTube. But this comes down to experience. This comes down to doing push-ups on your knuckles. That's what it is. Resi, where are you right now? Resi, can you hear me all right? I think we got an audio issue. So also, I'm going to come back to you, Alex, something you put in the comments here. This is another thing, is you've got to start developing an ear. That if you hear a bass player or somebody doing something, you just got to like figure out where they are. Often it's E or whatever the tuning of their guitar is. Usually they're bouncing off that low tuning, which is, they're usually tuned to D, because, you know, D. You got to figure out where they are, and in order to figure out where they are, you know, you ask them, and they may not know what they're doing. Is it electronic music, or is it more metal, or is it what sort of music is it?
Well, with my band, it's indie pop.
Okay.
Indie rock, but it was a general question because I feel that's like a blind spot for my musical knowledge.
This is the thing that I wanted to touch on about this show I saw last night, is that not only were they amazing players, this band, they were amazing listeners. Because they were listening, and that's the defining point that really separates like levels of musicians, is your ability to listen and to say something with your instrument appropriately. Not just go blah 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 blah, chunka 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 chunka, blah 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 blah, chunka chunka. Fuck off. Like, somebody else is saying something, either shut up or make something around them that's going to support them, that's not going to get in the way. And that's what's really fantastic about, you know, freestyle and stuff is, you know, listening to what's going on and going, okay, well, the keyboard player's not very good at music, so we're going to do a jam in E flat. Because in E flat, all the keyboard player needs to do is hit all the black notes. Everything's going to sound cool, just hit the black notes. So, you know, you might even, before you do these jam sessions, you might want to sit down and say, okay, here's what we're going to try. If there's a pulse or something, make the pulse in D. Or, you know, whatever. Like sit down and talk about it. The next thing you're going to need to do is learn that scale. Figure out, like, so you got to do your scales. C, D, E. I haven't done this in a million years. But yeah, you got to know the scales. There's music theory you got to know, because when you start engaging other people, even when they go, oh man, I don't know anything about music, you're using the language of music, and you have to translate what they're saying so you know what they're talking about. You know, unless you're just going to grunge it out on 3 chords, know what those 3 chords are. It's all about communication. It's communicating how you're going to communicate. And then you say, oh, but the Ramones didn't do that. But you're not the Ramones. Actually, the Ramones did do that, because the Ramones had 3 chords and that was it. And everybody knew that oh shit. I hate B. I don't know why, I just hate B. There's so many sharps and shit, I just hate B. Like, unless it's like no sharps B. That's evil. So I'm going to shut up now. If anybody else wants to talk about the language of music and chords, please. And like I said, everybody's experience on this one's different. So come on. Tell me about your experience and your thoughts. Rezi, can you hear us at all? We can't hear you. I'd love to hear.
I can now. Is my audio there?
Yes, it is. Hey, look, really quickly, specifically, where are you? What room are you in right now?
The Delta Sky Club at O'Hare.
Fantastic.
I'm here for a long time. Unfortunately,
Welcome.
my flight got bumped, so I mean, fortunately, I guess, since I'm here, so hey, can't
Awesome.
complain.
Awesome.
Yeah, they have a row of ISO booths here. So
All right, cool. Because I was
taking
going,
advantage of it.
did you get arrested? Are you in an airplane? I was just going, where are you right
I
now?
know.
This is so weird. Are you on some high-tech toilet?
I'm sorry, I cannot divulge.
Yeah, exactly.
Some secrets here.
Um,
There's information that you'll have to be, killed if you hear.
well, actually, I want to hear your secret thoughts about chords.
My secret is I have to look it up every time. I have to have a go-to cheat sheet. I have to go have a reference tune. I have to have there's the way that they did the cadence to get to a cool key change. There's the secondary dominant. I just can't internalize this stuff and use it frequently enough to have it be at my fingertips, which is, I know my limitations, and I hope maybe by the time I'm 80, I'll have internalized more of it than I have today. But knowing what some of the buzzwords are that you're looking for and knowing what to listen for and getting a little bit of ear training in on ear-bending chord changes, like the ones that get ripped off and reused ad nauseum, or to everyone's delight, let's say, is a skill. So, I watch my YouTubers that remind me in their jazz parlance what, chord extensions to use to push things to a different key. And I go, yes, note that. And I make a note to self. And I go look back up when I'm ready to do something. I know this song, I'm at a point where I need a lift or a fall or a diversion, or I just want to experiment with the different cadences and stuff. So
That's great.
that's my way.
That's what I'll take from that, because what you just talked about is quite advanced. And that's great. And so, Alex, take with you the idea of a cheat sheet of if you're in this key, and I'm sure these are everywhere online. Okay. Thank you, Peter. You're great. Have a cheat sheet and actually know that in D, these are different chords and the different things you can hit. Cheat sheet's super important. Rezi, hit me.
The way we talk about it sounds advanced, and it is advanced in that you have to keep track of a lot of details and words for things, but we do it naturally. The exiting a key to borrow a major third instead of sticking strictly to the minor, we do it all the time. If we listen to the first 3 Nine Inch Nails albums or whatever, like we don't stick to strictly diatonic. There's always chromaticism going on, and there's always jumping.
Hold on, stop.
Because we feel
Stop, Rezi. Every time you say something technical, I'm going to interpret that. No, because you love technicalities and you have a very advanced understanding of music. So Rezi said diatonic, and that means the notes that fall within the key. Except that one. And chromatic means all the notes, the black and the white ones. 9 Inch Nails means breaking things and swearing. Go on, Rezi.
And also, he does not a traditional, occasionally a Picardy third, which is when you're in the minor key and then you grab the major third of the.
Oh my God! Also known as the spinning wheel. That's a great track. So this is the major third. Happy, happy, happy. This is the minor third, and this is the, what did you call it?
Picardy. When you're in the minor, you've established the minor key, but you're like there, and then you
But
go,
the question is,
doesn't it make you feel better?
That's also a so usually the bass is playing the minor third. And when I play that now, it sounds fucking god awful. But that's also the spinning wheel chord. Oh no, he did this. Spinning wheel, and he's got the minor third on top, and that's actually a fantastic chord. It's also called a sharp second, sharp 9. Who cares?
Blues,
because yes,
blue notes and stuff are between there. So
it's a really great chord because you start. But keep going. Sorry.
I was wrapping it up anyway. Just noting that it is a natural thing that we do to go between the notes and to go out of the key. To talk about it requires somewhat elevated sounding specific language to say it clearly what you just did, but you hear it and you do it and it's natural. The blue note being one of them between the minor and major third. You know, I mean, that's a thing that we just naturally tune to because it's got a good ratio and it sounds good to the ear. So I don't mean to say it's essential to know those things to do them. Secondary dominance. It's just necessary to tune your ear to wanting them and executing them. But it makes it easier if you know what somebody's talking about to go look it up. That's all.
Okay, and I just want to stop really quickly. Thank you so much, Resi. I really appreciated that. I want to come back to the secondary dominant thing in a bit. Alex, I see your hand. Remember, when you're doing stuff now, when you have no idea what you're doing, you are communicating with the gods. And you are going to get ideas that break the rules, but they sound cool. And this is the most important time to really cherish this time, and to really, in years to come, when you know about secondary dominance and blah, 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 and then I have to ask you, what the fuck's a secondary dominant? This is you've got to like embrace this freedom of your mind. Because in years to come, when you're locked into all of this theory, you are going to look back at this time when you had no fucking idea when you're going and you're going, oh my God, I want to get back there. Rizzy, when you say a secondary dominant, do you mean a dominant in the second position?
Anytime you build a chord, including the seventh, it has a natural push to a root. Like that's the only unstable tetrad, 4 notes. Like that's got a way to resolve back to a 1 in its.
Oh,
its
you mean
own,
like
without being in context? That would be 5-1.
Yeah, 5-7. So secondary dominant. Why do you call it a secondary dominant?
It's a really good question. I'm not going to start trying to say it without really having it already defined. Like I said, I looked this stuff up. But it's because it's not the main dominant chord in the key. So you know
hold on. So when you say dominant, do you like mean fifth? Like, are we talking like Bach bullshit? Or when you say dominant, do you mean like a
5-1.
dominant 7?
Functional harmony. It means it in the functional harmony sense. So the dominant is the 5th chord of the scale, right?
Right. So why do you call it a secondary dominant?
Because any other chord voiced with the 7th in it is going to have its own root feeling that you can resolve to instead of the root of the main key that you're in. The way I understand it.
Okay, this is really fascinating. And Brent, I saw your hand, and we're going to throw back to this in a minute. So, Alex, this is an interesting thing I've noticed about when I talk to people about harmony and chords and shit, is that, so there's 2 different languages that are going on. There's jazz and there's classical. You just mixed jazz and classical. Because usually when somebody goes secondary, they're saying the chord in a second position, which just means instead of it being C, F, G, it's actually now going to be E, G, C. They're just going to take that bottom note and play it on the top. Hold on. But it's really, and the dominant, they're usually talking about a dominant 7. So that's 4 chords instead of it being like a normal chord. They throw in that 7 because they're cool and they have a beret and they drink lattes that are probably, oh, I'm sorry, Rezi, is this cutting too close? And it's really fascinating how I listen to people talk and it's like, what? Because, yeah, it's really, and then you talk to, it's just fascinating. It's really, really, really interesting that there's no unified language of chords. There's not. I'll fight you on this. There's not. Blah, blah, blah means blah, blah, blah to someone else. And it's like, oh, I've got a degree in jazz. I've got a degree in classical. And then they pick up machetes and they start going at each other. And you think those classical people are nice? They're not. You think those jazz people are cool? They're not. They fucking kill each other. That's not a dominant. This is a dominant. Hack, hack, hack. Let's talk about your OBS problems. Yeah, no, I don't want to talk about OBS problems with you, Adam, because last time you told me to download software and everything would be okay, and I did, and it got worse. Alex, I see your hand go.
Yeah, to make things much more complicated, there is even, in German classical music, there is a different nomenclature from the English classical music.
Yeah.
Apart from the jazz nomenclature being different again.
So,
Um,
in European...
Yeah, I think my problem in
Sorry,
the
go
past was that I thought, yeah, I'm going to learn chords. So I pick up my theory book, read 2 chapters, or maybe even just 2 paragraphs and fall asleep and stop. And I think that's the problem I had. I didn't try it out immediately.
Yeah, you gotta fuck around. You gotta. If you're gonna be reading shit, have a keyboard there. And another thing interesting in Europe, them Europeans. So this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. That gets called H or H. If you're in Australia, it's H. They call that H. What the fuck? I know, them Europeans. They're Europeans and their music. Resi, go. Yeah,
Here's
and
the thing,
Adam,
Mark.
hold on a minute. I just got to diss out Adam. Adam, I'm breaking the rules by choosing to have my podcast glitchy. Yeah, and you can't understand what I'm saying. It. Whose fault's that, Adam? He's gonna jump on in a minute. Resi, I'm sorry. Go.
What I wanted to say, Carl, is that you claim there's no correct way to do to talk about theory, but Nashville's got it figured out. If you just use Nashville chord numbers, the 1 chord, the 5 chord, the 4
Oh my
chord,
God!
who cares what key you're in? It doesn't matter. You just show up to the session. All right, I guess we're at A, but hey, the 1 chord, it's an A. You know?
I absolutely agree. I absolutely go with fucking Nashville. Yes.
Okay.
You know,
We
1, 3, 2, 4, 5. Go with Nashville. Nashville have also a fantastic way of figuring out royalties, and that is if you're in the room when the song gets written, you get a cut. That's the Nashville royalty cut, which I think is fantastic to a point. I say music theory should describe what we do, not drive it. Like physics describes what the observed music then... Yeah, absolutely. I guess what we're talking about is... yeah, I totally agree with what Adam just said about don't go too far down the theory rabbit hole. It's about the language. All you're learning is how to put words together, then what, or musical words together. Then once you have a basic understanding of the language, and you know, sure, there's 10,000 artists who have had no training and they're amazing at this. That's great. But there's 100 million of them who don't have training and they're not great. There is nothing wrong with learning the fundamental of vowels, nouns, and adjectives, and the other one that I never remember, and learning how to put them together in a sentence to speak more proper. And that's the thing, is that I threw in the word proper for comedic response. There are musical things you can do for comedic response as well. I knew that using the word proper was comedic response. That's why I said it. There's chords that you can do that are wrong, but they sound cool. And learn about the flat 5. That's important. See, I just went Nashville. Man, everyone agrees with Nashville. Does anybody want to talk now while Vince is playing George Benson in the background? And listen to George fucking Benson. Oh my God, listen to George Benson. And Miles. George Benson. Great shit. Does anybody want to throw in on this? Why? Why do I get the facepalm meme? You just facepalm me.
Right above that, Star Trek fans always pronounce Picardy third wrong.
Oh.
Picard.
I've never heard it called that. I've never heard.
That's the joke.
Oh, it calls a Hendrix as well. They call it a Hendrix. Like C Hendrix. If somebody says to me C Hendrix, I know exactly what they're talking about. He had a major third on top. C Hendrix. Major third on top, spinning wheel, minor third on top. Oops, shit. Great chord. I don't know. Aaron, go.
Hey, so I was thinking in the vein of exploring and fucking around. There's somebody that I like to follow that does a lot of harp work, and she'll patch her harps through synths. But what she'll do is craft a soundtrack to something that she sees without prior knowledge of said game, show, movie, etc. So that might be something cool in the vein of experimenting or just doing something creative and actually playing with the instrument, similar to what you would do in Logan Square when you would have a horror movie night or some kind of sci-fi movie, but you could play the score to the thing that's on the screen, you know?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there in the interest of thinking outside the box and trying something new and different. And hell, I mean, you might just be recording while you're doing it and then be like, oh, fuck yeah, that works on a lot of levels, you know? And without the prior knowledge of what the original soundtrack sounds like, you might be surprised in what you glean from seeing really stark visuals, no matter what the genre is, but those visuals can cue you up to do a lot of cool music stuff.
Yeah. And now, hold on, I'm just going to jump in here. I see your hand, Alex. That's really, really relevant because we are talking about the manipulation of emotion. And that's what's really important here. That's where you need to, sure, it's chemistry, but you got to know about chemistry before you start making perfume. That was a bad analogy. Like, I had this large conversation, like, because, my world is increasingly opera people. And a lot of opera people are black belts in jazz. Oh my God. And there's, cutting a very long story short, a cat, I will use a jazz word, a cat to listen to would be Wagner. And listen to the big, huge, complicated chords of, obviously Mozart, because he's a genius, but everybody hates it when I say Mozart's a genius, but he is. Listen to the amazing, incredible vastness of Wagner. And then, the angry German guy, just brilliant. Then listen to the underrated French guy, Debussy, who's totally on the other side, but they had so much in common, but we won't go into that right now. What Debussy does to music is, and if you want to talk about somebody who broke every single fucking rule, Wagner kind of broke rules, but he boasted about it, but he didn't really, but he kind of did. Dude, Debussy, holy shit. And he created the most beautiful, hypnotic, amazing, like he made music. He's got a track called The Sunken Cathedral, which I'll always go back to, that I'm going to start crying. It sounds like it is a cathedral that is underwater. And it's somebody playing it on a piano. Look it up. The Submerged Cathedral. And the opening moments, yeah, I'm going to start crying, in his opera Palios and Menizon is the most gut-wrenchingly beautiful moments in music. He's doing something that is just profoundly beautiful and breaks every single fucking law doing it and doesn't give a fuck. It's just stunning. And the way you are going to achieve that is sitting down with your little plonky plonk at night or wherever with it on your lap, turn off your fucking phone and fuck around playing. Once again, the art of rock comes down to the concept of play. You are allowed to play. Sit on the couch, turn off your phone and play. Because in playing, we learn. Alex, go.
I would have another short topic that probably only you can answer, but
Woo!
if Brett has something
Thank
to
you.
this topic, then maybe I come in the end.
Thank you, Brett. What you got?
Along the same lines, I was going to say, I was curious how certain sound effects often used, like in horror music, where you kind of hear these dramatic swells and pitches and whatnot, but they use another subset of chords sometimes and atonal kind of notes, and I was curious what you kind of called that.
Okay, that's a huge conversation. Hold on. So, Alex, can you please write down what you want to talk about, because I don't want to forget. Yeah, okay, this is great. See, I would highly recommend that you go down that road quite a while after you get an understanding of what's going on. Whether it's breaking rules or not, okay, that's an argument, but I don't really give a shit. A lot of that stuff's what's called diminished, where you're, instead of, you know, that sort of thing there. And what's fantastic about that, so what I'm doing is I'm just playing every minor third. C, E flat, oh, I'm sorry, this sucks, F sharp, and A. How many times have you heard that? Because it works. Here's another one you've heard a lot. This is Here Come the Elves. We're going to Rivendell, Sam. Oh shit. Sorry, we're going to the Blues Club, Sam. Back to Rivendell. Sam, it's so beautiful here in Rivendell. Who shall take the ring to Mordor? I'm with the elves. Oh, Sam. I don't know what that's called. I'm going to call that fucking Hobbit. So that's a flat 6. And this is a great note to learn about. That scale is fantastic. Listen to that. And while that's going on, you can do that. And then you can do this. Oh, so that's going from C to a major version of the flat 6, which is F flat. I'm sorry, A flat. Well, that's going on underneath it. Because we're going to Rivendell. And I don't need to take the piss out of it. But in every single movie where it's, they do it in Star Wars, they do it fucking everywhere. You know, you look at, fucking Star Wars, I'm gonna, oh my god, it's a diminished chord. See, that's my diminished chord. There it is. C, E flat, F sharp, A. I'm not going to bother trying, but there it is. So that's called a diminished chord. And the great thing about the diminished chord is it has power. And the interesting thing about the style is that that's used in a positive, strengthful manner, because the chords he's playing under that is F sharp major, not minor. You'd think it was, it's not, it's major. Oh. Oh shit. Major. Every chord that's hit is major. Passing note just as well, because Car can't play that shit. F sharp major. E flat major. And this is what's fantastic about chords, is that, sure, you can make it all diatonic, which is I'm playing the notes that I'm supposed to play, or you can say, oh, I'm gonna make, let's play that theme but dark. It's gonna be dark now, so, and you gotta excuse my bad playing and the glitch that you're experiencing, because Addambombb told me to install software that didn't work. So this is Star Wars but minor and evil. Oh. Oh shit. Did you hear the difference besides the fact that I can't play it for shit? So that's the minor notes. So a really fantastic, and Miss Ballistic does this all the fucking time, and so does ANGELSPIT'S, is that you'll have something minor going on. So here's a minor thing. I'm angry. Angry, angry, angry. Kind of Star Wars a bit. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to play it up here so you can hear it better. So, angry. Angry. But I'm going to play with major chords. I can't play for shit. The point being is that you have created something that on the top is angry, but because the chords are major, every single chord is major, you've created this thing of great power. And it's the best cheat. And like, that's what I do with Miss Ballistic, is that no matter what that melody is singing, underneath it, no matter what the bass line is doing, The big synth pads are major, 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 major. And I've been doing that on the past few ANGELSPIT albums. And do it in your fucking chorus. Even if the notes you're playing are non-diatonic, meaning if they don't fall inside that very strict scale, doesn't fucking matter. Power, 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 power. And you will feel your heart raise an inch in your chest. It's fantastic. So, Brent, I'm just going to come back really quickly. There was the Alex guy who did the Terminator. You know that guy? He's really fucking... Alex Ball. He did a thing about the Terminator soundtrack. And there's another scale, which is... We've talked about this. It's called the half tone, full tone. So it goes... So this is a normal scale. You know, I know a lot about theory, but I can't play for shit. It's kind of funny. And this is the half tone, full tone. So that means I'm going to go half a tone and then full a tone. And his video is better because I suck at this. So a half tone is this, full tone, half tone, full tone, half tone, full tone, half tone, full tone. Ends up back at C, and instead of it being 8 notes, it's 9 notes, or 7 notes, it's 8 notes, depending how you look at it. And you end up with this fantastic scale, and there's all of these different chords and all of these different things you can do, and it's fucking great. A chord pattern I love playing is this one. And what's fantastic about that one and that's actually got a tone and a half in it. So you can make up your own fucking things and fuck around with what's going on. So in answer to that question, Brent, that's what's going on with a lot of those stems and those sound... Oh! Speaking about stings, we were joking last night in the theater about we want to do a... I used to work in a haunted theater, and I was telling them about some of the shit I saw in this theater in Chicago, actually called the Athenaeum, and it's haunted to fuck, legitimately haunted. And we saw mad... At another time, I will go into the fucking mad shit. And I said, what we need to do in this theater in LA, which is not haunted at all, is have a... we need to do a haunted theater tour where we take people through... Because they shot us in this... They shoot fucking Forrest Gump in this theater. It's LA. They shoot everything everywhere. But we need to do a thing where we need to make up all this bullshit and tell people creepy stories about what happened at this point. Somebody fell to their death and they left a stain and we've never been able to get rid of the stain, all that sort of bullshit. So anyway, after the show, we were cleaning up and one of the guys was downstairs and there's a chair sitting on a table. The fucking chair moved. It moved. It fucking moved. And it was like... Oh, fuck. And it was really... And as soon as that happened, the vibe fucking changed. Okay, so that's scary. Maybe he was lying, I don't know. But that's the trick. And that's just a scale. That diminished thing's just a scale, and we were talking about scales. I'm going to throw it back to you, Alex. I'm sorry, I just took up a whole bunch of time.
Sorry, I had...
That's all right. I got you in the middle of a pizza.
I needed to eat that gummy bear like a snake.
Go ahead.
You performed multiple times with latex clothing as ANGELSPIT. I sort of researched it and realized that most people put it on using either a special lube or talcum powder. My question is, does that get onto the gear you are using?
Yes. You just
and
have
how bad is it?
It's not all that bad. Can we talk about this in a minute? Rezi had his hand up and he may have wanted to, because this is actually, latex on touring makes a lot of sense, but I want to throw that firstly to Rezi because he probably wants to say something awesome about.
I did want to go back to what Brett was talking about. I'm into the latex topic also, but just to bridge, Brett, you mentioned two really powerful concepts in horror sounds, and atonality and dissonance being the fundamentals of some of what Carl was just pulling out. And I wanted to play some scales too, but without a keyboard here, it's like talking about doesn't make sense. But things with like really dense ratios, close notes that are, you know, minor seconds apart and played at the same time in very low frequencies. These are the natural evocative doom sounds. Like when something is distant and low, it has inharmonicity and it sounds like noise, but it's still pure. So it can't be too complicated, but just enough so that there's like two notes very low beating against each other with some sort of thrumming. Like that's one of the most ominous things in the world. And if you have a Bosendorfer, you can do it in another octave down.
Yeah, the thing that tricks the lizard brain.
Absolutely. And on the other end of the spectrum, some of the very high stuff with the metallic style crazy harmonics that sound like screeches and screams and the terror and the noise of babies that need attention. There are things you can do that don't require theory and don't require scales, are strictly atonal or strictly, you know, built on scary elements of horrible sounding sound. And there's some, you know, obviously bowed metal and struck metal and things like that that have a lack of a fundamental tone to pick up that really kind of send that stuff. And there's a lot of fun and scariness to be had in those things. And I think, Carl, you might have alluded to doing this stuff with intention. Like when you mean to have something be disorienting and it's subharmonic, like down near 20 hertz, and just moving air on a very powerful theater system, you get an effect. And it's, and you know, yeah, that was where I wanted to go back with it, because I appreciated that you checked those features, Brett.
Yeah, the bottom line is, once again, experiment, play around, experiment, draw knowledge in, take notes, turn off the fucking internet, and sit down and experiment. And you know, just experiment. Experiment. Man, I wish Vangelis wrote a horror score. I really did. That guy was a brilliant jazz piano player, a brilliant classically trained musician, and also bomb jazz piano player. And he knew exactly what he was doing with every finger because it had an emotional response. He knew. And so did all of the other greats. And yes, Vangelis was one of the greats. But the thing is, once again, you're in a language, and everything Rezi just talked about was a part of the language. If you know about, or if you know about that, you can utilize it. And take the whole concept of cliches out of your brain. It's not a cliche because you've never done it. It's not a cliche. I've managed to piss off Addambombb once again in the comments. He's going to come on any minute now. If anybody else wants to throw in about this, we could, or we could talk about latex. Okay, so back to your question, Alex, about latex. Latex, it's not that bad. It doesn't get everywhere. The lube is water-based, so you can wipe it off your keyboards and stuff. And it's the thing that is it's kind of sticky, but the thing is, it's the sweat. And you want to go out looking shiny, but afterwards you're going to look not so shiny because you're going to be covered in sweat and stuff. Yeah, talcum powder is great. I've never had problems with... See, with talcum powder, it's on the inside, and it usually doesn't get out. And if you're going to use latex, I would suggest that on your keyboard stand, there's a place you can wipe your hands. In fact, always, everywhere. The thing to be concerned most about is sweat getting into your gear, because that's going to make shit rust. Latex on tour is brilliant because it dries easily, quickly, and it doesn't hold smell, sweat, and bacteria. If you look after it, and it takes like 3 minutes to wipe, or like wash it, wipe it down, talc it down, store it. And it stores in something this big, like you put it in a Snaplock bag. With your clothes, they are going to stink after day 3, incredibly, like you have no concept. And if you wear PVC, sweat plus PVC in a van becomes a smell that is ungodly. Don't do it. Wear latex as much as you can. Wear latex because there's a real practicality. Alistair says, that's my next level keyboard playing. I know exactly which keys to hit, but I can't keep them reliably. I can't either. I'm just awful at. I'm just so terrible at. My brain knows, but my fingers can't do it. Alex, hit me.
Do you have any experience with rubberized pots if the loop interacts badly with them and maybe dissolves the rubber or something? Or the coating? Because sometimes gear has like this coating, and it's notorious for going sticky if it's treated wrong or aging, and that would be another worry I have, because like I would use basically mostly the Octatrack, and it has like these special potentiometers that are extra grippy. So
I've never had that experience. And remember that the lube on latex is water based, so it's not. I think oil based stuff can wreak havoc or increase the aging of rubber. But it doesn't. I haven't really had experience with that because everything I did was like dope for stuff, and it worked. Man, it's funny. I've got my my Chaos pad, and right here I started using it again this week. Great fucking synth thingy. And we did this gig in Ireland like fucking 14 years ago, and they had fake blood. So the show, the burlesque show, surgically fucking burlesque show, fake blood goes everywhere, all over the gear. And I am still scraping pieces of fake blood, which was like corn syrup and red dye. I am still scraping red dye, fucking fake blood out of my out of my Chaos pad. And every time I do it, I have a chuckle because I go, Ireland, it's a good show. Okay, this has been very entertaining. Does anybody else want to say something specifically to piss off Addambombb? Hey, look, I'm glitching. Razzie!
I changed my mind about whatever I donated, so I'd like a refund. If I don't like your attitude this week. So
actually, on that note, a reminder. No, do I still have the GoFundMe? I don't even know if the GoFundMe is still going. Hold on a minute. I don't have it in front of me right now. Okay.
While you're looking for that, I'd like to say also I'm not in the chat, Adam. So anything you need to say, you're gonna have to come on here and say it.
And Adam's, if you get a chance, please donate to Adam. The Facebook event, damn it, which I don't have. If somebody can stick that in the, it had all of the Venmo and everything else. And we still always have to be looking after Adams with this surgery situation. And here it is. Hold on a minute. Boom. Boom. And it was a fantastic raid train. Oh my God. Did you see Adam's set? It was just so fucking good. So good. Wow, I'm glitching really hard. Yeah, okay, Adam, you're right. Fuck off, you're right. Does anybody else want to jump in at this point and say something amazing? Rezi, go.
Just a quick seconding of the raid train experience was really cool. I didn't get to be in nearly as much of it as I wanted to, having a whole day off, but watching the community and watching how people come together and watching the enthusiasm for helping people, and I've said it before, but watching the way that people contribute on Twitch as DJs and scene members is just, it's amazing. And I'm really glad Adam got to be a beneficiary of that, and I got to see it happen. It was cool.
It was a real celebration. It was really fantastic. I needed it. But it was a whole bunch of people coming together, and it was just really wonderful. And once again, there's that link. So if you haven't, thrown a few bucks in yet, please do so, because it's very, very, very important. Is there anything else we want to talk about right now, or we could raid on over to MTV TV? Okay. Just before I do, though, I'm going to just briefly touch on a rabbit hole that we talked about, which was building your own instruments. If you ever do something horrifying, like a horror track or something, build an instrument. Because it's going to create something that you're not going to think about. And it's not like a pitched instrument. Suspend wire between some pots and pans and see what happens. Using water is fantastic because water moves, and as water moves, it changes the pitch and tonality of it. It's the creepiest fucking thing you've ever heard. There's so many wonderful things that just open your mind to the possibilities of music and stuff. Like, we've been the chords and all of these scales are an encyclopedia that you need several lifetimes to figure out. But then you go into experimentation and shit like that, and it's like, holy crap. Alex, what you got?
Yeah, composition-wise, I seem to have the Midas touch of shit, because somehow, like, everything I write right now doesn't really feel right. But what I did was create my own sample packs by just using sounds, going through effects, repitching stuff, and so on. That has been really rewarding. So just because I've been geeking out about old sample libraries used in video games that I loved as a child and young adult, and